Good morning, everybody. Apologies for the not so consistent uploads, but honestly there hasn't really been a lot of stuff to talk about, or at least stuff that I would consider to be interesting that you would find enjoyable. But hey, I've been in the space since 2013 and a lot of stuff has just kind of become very dull and boring to me. So if there is a topic you would like me to discuss that you think is of interest or worth, let me know and I'll make a video on it. But don't worry, I have been using my time wisely, and I have built this small little side project which I have had in my to-do list for quite a while now with the help of a couple of other people, and I plan on releasing it either this week or next week, so be sure to keep an eye out for that, and you can follow me on Twitter to know exactly when I release it, and I cannot wait to share it with you. Anyway, with that out of the way, today's topic I wanted to discuss was this idea of decentralized finance, or DeFi as it has become known, as it's not necessarily a terrible idea, but more of a deeply flawed one when you get into it, and I'll bring up some examples later on. But the headline which actually brought my attention to this was this on Decrypt, which states that stablecoins now dominate the Ethereum blockchain, with more value being transferred via stablecoins over the Ethereum blockchain than its own native cryptocurrency. Now, I did a video, I think a couple videos back now, where I discussed how much value is being transferred on-chain, and yes, again, it's not a perfect metric, but it does give some insights which we can glean some information from. And in that comparison, it became clear that more value was actually being transferred over the Litecoin network as opposed to the Ethereum network, based just on the respective native tokens. And I think if we scroll down here, they have a chart from Masari Crypto, which I'll just pull up here, and it shows the monumentous rise and growth in stablecoin usage on the Ethereum network, mainly in Tether or USDT, which is issued by Bitfinex. And this is just a yearly snapshot from January 2019 to January 2020. So we can see here Ethereum in dark blue rising along with all the other crypto assets at this time through the middle of the year before coming all the way back down in usage. And the sustained usage which we see here is mainly, as it's listed, USDT, USDC, PAX, DAI, TrueUSD, Gemini's USD, all these are stablecoins, and these now greatly outweigh by an order of magnitude the use of actual Ethereum on the network. I think it's important to note the fact that stablecoins are not dependent or reliant on any one blockchain, so all this usage could easily move to another network. Of course, Tether also is issuing on the Tron network, and they had previously issued on the Omni layer of Bitcoin, which is where Tether originally started out. So yes, while there are people who will look at a chart like this and say, look how much usage and growth there is on the Ethereum network, it's kind of a fallacious argument because all that activity could easily just move elsewhere. It is not dependent or tied to Ethereum in any real which way that forces it to be stuck here. So with that said, let's take a bit of a deeper look at DeFi and some of the applications are being brought out for it right now, and discuss why a lot of these are kind of bad and flawed. Starting off with stablecoins. What are they and who do they really benefit here? As we all know, stablecoins are these assets which are pegged to baskets of real-world commodities, fiat currencies or stocks, or anything which is just far less volatile than traditional cryptocurrency per se. These stablecoin assets are then printed by a central private company, which means they are, yes, fully centralized and at the whim of that company and the jurisdiction in which that company resides. And as far as I'm aware, the only people who actually stand to gain anything from stablecoins are the people or companies that issue them, as in effect it's really just a government issued fiat currency with extra steps in between. You're making this system more complicated than it is already by putting more middlemen into the process. I can't think of any process off the top of my head where adding more steps makes that system or project more efficient or work better for the customer. And I believe I'm right in saying that the only reason USDT or Tether was really created was to allow Bitfinex to get around regulations for the operation of their business, which is perfectly fine. But the idea that we're now trying to sell stablecoins as the future of cryptocurrency is really kind of circular, as in we've come full circle from I want my money in a bank to be centrally issued by the government to oh, this cryptocurrency is kind of cool, I want to buy some Bitcoin. I have full control and autonomy over it, and it's a decentralized network, so nobody can take it from me. Nobody can freeze my assets. And now we're coming to this point where people are saying, I want to take my digital asset, my Bitcoin, my Ethereum, and trade it, or lock it in a contract, for example, with DAI and Pax on Ethereum, and pull out this centrally issued stable asset, which doesn't really benefit me and is at the complete whim of the company, which means I have to trust them once again. Effectively, we've gone, again, full circle, back into a bank. And you know what, if I'm wrong on this, please do let me know. I am open to having my mind changed, but in the last 7 years of being involved in the cryptocurrency space, I have yet to see a real reason to use a stablecoin over the fiat asset which underlies it. Because think of it, and I propose you this question, would you rather hold an actual US dollar or a US dollar equivalent that has been issued by a private company? Because for me, both of these assets do the exact same job. There's no benefit to using a stablecoin when you can just use the underlying asset, in my opinion. But of course, be sure to let me know what you think down below. Anyway, let's take a look back at the article and see if there's anything more interesting to take away from it. They write, though Ethereum has its own cryptocurrency, there are thousands of tokens that run on the platform. Some of these platforms are stablecoins, assets that are tied to the value of another currency like the US dollar or gold. Yeah, we discussed that. Ethereum's economy is now dominated by stable value transfer, treated Ryan Watkins, a research analyst at Missouri. He said the flip happened in mid-2019 and the gap has widened ever since. And here's a problem. Ethereum was always about this promise of decentralized applications. Again, something which is just inherently flawed as an idea in itself. Nobody wishes to hold on to all that user data, and running a node for Ethereum is just a complete headache, which means that if you or I can't participate in the network, well, as far as I'm concerned, it's not decentralized. But now the project seems to have somewhat shifted its goalposts, or at least rebranded decentralized applications into this idea of decentralized finance. This thing which is actually going to work this time, instead of all these failed projects which came and went and ended up bloating the network. And if we scroll down here, we can see the Tether market cap. So here in blue we have, I believe, the Omni layer. It doesn't say that, it just says USDT market cap, so I'm assuming that's the original, which is Omni. In orange here we have Ethereum, and in green we have Tron, or TRX. And just below that we have this interesting tidbit, which writes, in a tweet in November, data analysts Coinmetrics said that the value of Tether transfers on Ethereum were 2 or 3 times that of Ether transfers. By comparison, this ratio never grew above 0.4 on Bitcoin, they wrote. And I think that may indeed be the most startling takeaway from this article. When Tether was on the Bitcoin network or on the Omni Layer 2 network, it never outshined the underlying asset. Bitcoin was always the king of it. On Ethereum, it is outshining it, as they write, by a factor of 2 to 3 times that of the own native Ether asset. And again, as I mentioned at the start of this video, stablecoins aren't reliant on Ether. These companies can pick up all that value and shift it onto another network. That's what they've been doing with it on Bitcoin here. They've been taking it off the Omni layer and onto these other things for various reasons, one way or the other. So people who are perhaps huge fans of Ethereum and would use figures like this to justify their investment into showing how useful the Ethereum network is, are standing on very shaky ground when all of that can just be picked up and moved at a dime or at the whim of these private companies. And in fact, a tweet quite perfectly illustrating this matter happened to fall on my timeline from a person going by the name Santi. Now, I don't know who Santi is, but this is not the first time one of his tweets has fallen on my timeline, so I'm assuming he is somewhat important as a developer in the Ethereum space, but he had this to say. It has been 10 years already. Layer 2 Bitcoin protocol stuck at $8 million. DeFi on Ethereum is reaching $1 billion. Go figure out why. This comparison of decentralized finance applications on top of Ethereum, comparing that to the Lightning Network and other layer 2 solutions for Bitcoin, is a terrible apples to oranges comparison. It is a false equivalency. There are a lot of valuable details missing here, and yes, I know you can't fit so much into a tweet, but for example, what is defined as DeFi to Santi in this case? Does he have a list or a source of applications and projects which are going in to create this 1 billion figure? Because currently as it stands, this isn't backed up by anything, and it makes it really hard to argue against you when you're just stating something as a fact without providing the necessary evidence for me to go over and properly critique it. And I was in fact talking about the idea of DeFi with someone quite recently, and a quite interesting topic was brought up, mainly the fact that we call it decentralized finance, but all of these projects tend to be pretty centralized or built on top of centralized foundations, so it's somewhat of an oxymoron to even use this figure to begin with. Again, case in point, stablecoins. They are classified as DeFi, but they are 100% centralized and issued by private companies. And another example is this idea of borrowing and lending. It's something which, when you actually take a look at, you don't really want to be involved in. The system is very much stacked against the user or the customer in many of these cases. So, for example, a lot of these companies which offer you the option to borrow or lend have something called CDOs, or collateralized debt obligations, which means very basically you send some of your cryptocurrency to a contract address, something which is set up and controlled by the business. Once your Bitcoin or Litecoin hits this address and is confirmed and written off as all good, you are then allowed by the company to withdraw an asset of value. This can either be a fiat currency like the US dollar, this is currently the most popular as far as I can see at this moment, or a stablecoin issued by that company. And they, in return, offer to guarantee you some interest on that, which again, come full circle into a bank. You see where this is going. But it gets worse. Let's take the example of borrowing in this matter. If you put $100 worth of Bitcoin into these contract addresses, you are then allowed to pull out roughly half of that value as a fiat currency. Half. What is the point of that? Tell me. And because this is a collateralized debt obligation, if the cryptocurrency markets crash and your account balance falls below the threshold, you will be liquidated. You won't even have your Bitcoin anymore. It will be taken from you. And if that isn't bad enough, you as a borrower also have to pay interest. That's how the lenders and the company are making their money. But wait, there is even more. Once you have your coins locked into one of these contracts for, I assume, 6 months or a year, if the market is rising during this time, you don't get the benefit of that underlying asset increasing in value. You still get the same 1 to 2% annual yearly interest. So again, please tell me why you just wouldn't hold the Bitcoin yourself. Why enter into one of these businesses? It makes quite literally no sense to me. But again, perhaps with stablecoins, I'm missing something here. So if I am, please let me know down below. Oh, and one more thing I forgot to say about stablecoins. The companies who issue them, They have your fiat money in their bank account. That is accruing tons and tons of interest from the bank. Interest which, by the way, you will never see. But hey, you get to hold their stable centrally issued token if that makes you feel any better. And with that, I'm pretty sure I've said everything I wanted to on this matter, although I'm sure I'll think of something during the edit, or someone in the comments will tell me something which I didn't even consider, so perhaps I'll do another follow-up video if there's enough to make another topic about this on. But either way, I do hope you enjoyed this video. As always, be sure to let me know what you think down below or on Twitter. I do enjoy reading what you have to say, as often, again, there are things which I often miss out or haven't considered, so it's good to have that conversation. If you liked this video, be sure to leave a like, and while you're down there, why not also subscribe? And as always, I will see you next time.